My plane is literally crashing over Greenland right now.
Ugh.
And everyone's saying, I'm so sorry. There's really nothing we can do. And he said, God told me that I was supposed to dump the fuel. And he said, that made no sense to me at all. And everyone back at like at the headquarters was like, don't do that. You won't have any fuel to land if it does
Mhm.
work. Like, that's the worst idea. Don't do that. He said that he just had this deep, strong feeling that he was supposed
Right.
to dump the fuel.
So, have you ever wondered why some people seem to just know what to do while other people second guess every decision? Today, we're talking about what makes intuitive individuals different and how you can tap into your own inner wisdom. So, to dive right into this, we're going to be talking about how to trust your gut and also make good and balanced decisions, but without analyzing every little detail, overthinking things, and getting into that paralysis by analysis situation that really relies on being able to tap into your own inner guidance system, understanding what it says to you, but also being able to have confidence in your ability to make good decisions and trusting yourself. And so, to help me with this conversation and share her wisdom with you is my guest, Brittney Carmichael. She's the founder of Shine School, and she has helped a lot of people do this, get tapped into themselves, learn how to love themselves, and really become more empowered through their relationship with themselves, but also the ability to take guidance from inner wisdom and intuition. And so she's here today to share her wisdom with us. Brittney, thank you. And so just to jump right into this, what I'm curious about is, are there people who are just naturally more gifted in intuition, like the inner wisdom, like they're just more open, maybe more connected to themselves, versus other people who tend to be more closed to taking in information from anything other than what they experience as being objective reality? Although, what does that mean? And for people that are more closed, is this something that could be developed, or how much does natural aptitude play into this? Can you speak to that?
Yes, the short answer here is yes, that some are more naturally open to their intuition and some are more closed. But the good news is that we all possess that intuitive muscle. Some of us go to the gym and work it out metaphorically, and some of us ignore it. And the same is true with most people's physical health. It's basically putting a student in a class. Could everyone learn the subject? Yes, but are some going to be naturally gifted at math versus science? Yeah, we all just operate differently, but there definitely is a hierarchy in being able to be more open and receptive to it. And
Yeah.
it just takes practice.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about that practice a little bit, especially for someone who struggles to make decisions, particularly like major life decisions, and they're just feeling like that. Because what is true is that we also have different parts of ourselves, right? Maybe we have a more logical side, we have a more feeling side, the side that says, this would be fun, the other side that says, but practically speaking. And I think that it can be hard. Which voice ultimately gets that final say, right? And this is actually a thing. This is not me making stuff up. Parts psychology, internal family systems is a real thing. But I think it is in alignment with what we're talking about today with regards to intuition, because when you have all of these competing voices inside of you, one may be stronger and more well developed than the other. Certainly in the case of someone who has placed logic, or air quote rational thinking, as being more important in the hierarchy of what to trust. How do you help somebody begin to just make friends with other parts of themselves that may also have valuable things to contribute?
Oh my gosh, that's such a great question. And my brain
You're like,
has
how much time do we have?
it makes me think of like the Albert Einstein quote about how
Mm.
intuition is like the mind will always be a master to that intuition.
Mm.
So even some of the most brilliant intelligence of our time talks and reveres intuition as the gift, right? It is prevalent. It is a part of who we are and how we've come here, but we just haven't been brought up to respect it or to know how to use it. And I think that the fact we're having this conversation shines a light on where our development and our awareness as a culture and a species is coming. So, goes back to even childhood. Like, did your parents foster a sense of trust and belief and allow
Mm.
you for creative expression, or were you constantly told to like stand in line or get yourself in the box? So much of that conditioning starts from childhood. So that can stunt our development and our growth in
Mhm.
our intuitive connection.
The question is, how can people just make space for other parts of themselves? And I really appreciated what you're saying about the developmental process here, and just to honor the fact that not everybody has a formative experience that helps them make contact with all these different dimensions of self. Like, so even in my own life, a personal example, I grew up in a home where my dad is an engineer, an electrical engineer, like the science guy. And so I was raised in a place to just devalue those parts. And it was only later in life, moving into my 20s at least, and even starting to be my 30s, is to value and respect things that might not be logical or entirely fact based. Like, I pursued a science degree in college and biology, and that felt good to me because it felt trustworthy. But then the other side, my mother was an incredibly spiritual person, and so I have these two parts of myself, but had to go through a journey of being able to develop parts that I felt like wouldn't really have been okay to develop at an earlier point in my life, just because of being socialized in the culture of my family of origin. And so I was happy to hear you talking about that and how that's true. But I think maybe my takeaway is that I think what you said previously, deciding that you would like to have a more multi-dimensional relationship with yourself, where you're not just prioritizing logic at the expense perhaps of your relationships, your empathy, your ability to understand other people or help them feel cared for by you. But certainly what we've been talking about, like with the intuition, with that inner wisdom, because that is so vitally important in order to make good decisions, to have self-compassion, to understand things more deeply. And that if you're only operating from this one, I only take information that is factually accurate, again, whatever that means, you're really at a disadvantage moving through the world.
I absolutely
Mm-hmm.
agree. And it's why
Yeah.
I'm so adamant and on mission to remind you that you have this innate power within you. And
Sure.
so, what I see is that so many people are bypassing their intuition and their courage and their growth by just saying,
Mm-hmm.
oh, well, it wasn't meant for me because it was hard. No, that was a challenge to see if you're willing to
Yeah.
step up to the plate and actually follow through with
Mm-hmm.
that guidance or that struggle to see who
Yeah.
you become in that process.
I think what you're saying is that we all run things through our filters, and that we have to be cautious about how you are interpreting the things that happen to you. And is this helpful or unhelpful to you? This is a big question. But what advice do you have for people who, like, okay, I'm getting these messages, but I'm still running them through my filter to make them tell me what I want to hear? What do you say?
You have to
Uh-huh.
scrutinize all information that comes in, whether it's your own or your parents or through social media. If you really get down to your intuition and where is this
Mm-hmm.
information coming from, whether you say it's God or intuition or higher self, it
Mm-hmm.
is all the same. And so it
Mm.
doesn't matter what we label it. It just matters, is it loving, is it supportive, and are you courageous enough to follow through with it?
Yeah.
And as I mentioned before, if you feel bad, then it's not for you. Unless it's saying, hey, negative, red
Mhm.
flags, he's a narcissist, he's walking all over boundaries, and that
Mhm.
makes you feel bad. Recognize that in your system and say, oh, this is a warning sign. Our emotions are just signals to let you know something's going on. Like when
Exactly.
anger arises,
Yeah.
it's
Mhm.
showing you that
Anger,
something's unsafe
fear.
in
I
your
love
situation. You
them.
need to figure it out.
Yeah.
So I think it's important for us to definitely scrutinize all information that comes in,
Mhm.
especially your own, because it could be your fears talking, but it also could be the thing that saves your life. And
Yeah.
one story I really feel called to tell you,
Yeah.
it really changed my perspective on
Okay.
everything. He was a pilot and he was in the Air Force, and he, logic, pilot, all numbers, facts, all the
Mhm.
things. Like, he was like the perfect epitome of what living logically looks like, right? Not fully from the heart. Not saying that he didn't have those capacities, but he was raised and that's his go-to. We don't do that.
Yeah.
But he was flying over Greenland, and he said that his plane started putting up all these warning signs like malfunctioning,
Oh
mayday,
no.
like you're
Mhm.
going down, nothing. happening. Like there were all these like warning signs going off, and his plane started going down. He said he kept calling back and signaling to the crew, guys, I'm going down. I don't know what to do. This is bad. Holy shit, what is
Oh my
going
God.
on? And he's trying to communicate to the tower and let him know, like, my plane is literally crashing over Greenland right now.
Ugh.
And everyone's saying, I'm so sorry. There's really nothing we can do. Like, maybe you could try this. And he's like, I've tried all of that. None of these buttons are like flipping the switch or doing anything that they should. And he said, God told me that I was supposed to dump the fuel. And he said, that made no sense to me at all. In fact, I told the team that God just told me I need to dump the fuel. And everyone back at the like at the headquarters was like, don't do that. You won't have any fuel to land if it does work. Like, that's the worst idea. Don't do that. He said that he just had this deep, strong feeling that he was supposed to dump the fuel. So he did. He flipped the switch, he dumped the fuel, and as soon as he did, it triggered whatever was malfunctioning and it went back to normal. And he was able to land that plane in Greenland. And that just gave
Oh
me
my
full body
gosh.
chills and reminded me that no matter who you are, no matter if you're trying to develop your intuition and reading tarot cards and breath work and all this stuff, or you're in a life or death situation, which is what triggered my intuition. So it's always there, but when you really need it, shows up. And if you're willing to take that courageous leap of, I don't even know what is telling me. When they told me to turn that car around on the mountain, it made no sense to me, but I did, and it saved my life. And just like
Yeah.
he listened to what God said to him, or intuition, or whatever you want to label it. I just don't want to get caught up in these labels to where people get turned off by it. But he
Yeah.
listened to that internal voice, that feeling, and it saved his life. So I think it's a very important piece, like that we don't just wait till rock bottom to make that relationship.
Yeah. Wow. What an amazing story. Thank you so much for sharing that. And maybe this is a nice place to land this plane, Brittany. But as you were talking, it made me think about a book that I read a million years ago. I hope it's still on my shelf here somewhere, but it was very formative. It's called The Gift of Fear. And the author, I think he was actually like an FBI agent, but going through a lot of different case examples. And actually, there's a Pulitzer Prize winning authors who wrote a book called Thinking Fast and Slow. And I offer this because, like, no matter what your spiritual belief system, the truth is that there are different parts of your brain and that they work in different ways. And there is conscious thought, there is logical thought, but particularly in life and death situations, there are other parts of your brain that mobilize and work to save your life. And that is what was explored in The Gift of Fear. People who were in life and death situations, and honestly, like with serial killers and all kinds of crazy stuff, if you want to check out that book, but that they just had this powerful moment where it was like, get up and walk out the door, like right now. And they just listened to it and they were saved. And you reminded me of that when you were talking about that story in the plane, because who knows if that person was like connected to a belief system necessarily, or if it was their inner wisdom, wise mind, or if it was just a biologically based survival system that was operating in the background, but took everything that they knew and like somewhere at some point they had read something in a training manual that they have long since forgotten, but that was like still there in the meat. And at that moment, it fired back into existence. It was like, dump the fuel. And the point being is that it doesn't matter where it comes from, that you are a complex human. You have so many different parts of yourself that are worthy of trusting, they're worthy of respecting. And like you were just saying, don't wait until it's a life or death moment to even begin to develop a relationship with other parts of yourself. Because, I mean, what if you could incorporate that into your life right now and have an easier time making decisions, knowing what to do, trusting yourself? Like, it's all there for you right now.
It's so true. It's so true. And start small. Maybe you're not like, what does my intuition say about leaving this 20-year marriage? Or maybe that might be the easiest one because you already know you're just not courageous enough to follow it. But just start with small things. You know, maybe drive a new direction and ask yourself intuitively, do I go left or right here? I've never looked at a map. I like to do that when I'm traveling in places that I've never been before. I don't turn on the map and I just allow my intuition. Should I go left or right here? Like, what about here? Do I go straight? Do I keep going? And every time I do that, it always leads me to some very magical, unique adventure or person or park that I planning on going to. And one of those times in Canada turned me into this park that led to this forest filled with mushrooms that I started taking pictures of, and developed my photography business for nature because I landed in this park that had the most beautiful mushrooms growing in moss that
Amazing.
I'd never seen before. That inspired another chapter of my creative expression.
That's amazing. And it like changed your life trajectory that you had left instead of right. Oh my gosh. Brittany,
Yeah,
this
right.
has,
Isn't it weird?
yeah, been such an inspiring conversation. This has just been so much fun talking with you. And I really appreciate everything that you've shared with us about your life and your experiences, your development, and just such an empowering message. And so the people listening to this today are like, I want more Brittney in my life, and they want to really work on these things in a more active way. Tell us where people can connect with you to learn more about you.
You can find all of this magical information
Hmm.
at brittneycarmichael.com, from my luxury goddess retreats to
Yay.
my programs to help you develop your self-love and
Hmm.
confidence, to finding me on Instagram at the World by Brit, so we can develop a real life connection, real virtual connection, and probably turn into real life if you want to come
Yeah.
to Florida and go to one of our events. So
Yeah.
I just hope that everyone takes away like a deeper trust in themselves after listening to this, because I know that when I started diving down this rabbit hole and started learning more about this gift that we all have, it really gave me a lot more confidence to trust what I already knew. I've done hundreds, if not thousands, of readings for people, and most of the people that walk away at the end of it say, I already knew this though. I'm like,
Mm.
I know that you don't
Hmm.
believe in yourself,
Yeah.
trust yourself. And when you have that external validation, sometimes it's enough for you to finally say, you know what, I'm tired of doubting myself.
Hmm.
I do know things.
Yeah.
And so I hope that maybe you have an intuition pop up during today's conversation that has been nudging you and nudging you, and hopefully you listen to it rather than learn a lesson from it.
Yeah. That's awesome. Thank you again so much for doing this with me. This was such a fun conversation. I learned a lot today, and you'll have to come back and talk to me again sometime.
Yes, we have so much to talk about. Thank you for
Me
opening the
too.
door to allow this conversation out into the world. And I appreciate your presence and great questions and just the space that you hold for not just me as a guest, but all of the people that come into contact with you, all of your clients and colleagues. You are a bright light in this world. And that's why I was so drawn to you at the podcast movement.
Thank you, Brittany. All right. Thanks again for spending this time. We'll talk again soon.